Hey guys, Weep here. Today we're going to be doing a class guide on the Assassin class in Dragon Raja. Before we start, I would like to mention that we will have a doc below the video which will have information on the class which will evolve as we get in and the community contributes and will help you min-max your account. But for now, we'll give you basic tips and combos to use to level up and in general do decent damage. But the doc will evolve over time and help you get more out of your class than a single video would ever allow. So make sure you do check out that doc when you have time. Okay, so the Assassin class. So the Assassin class has both melee and long range abilities. The Assassin is similar to a mage when it is in long range and similar to a general assassin in most games when in melee range. It has great damage and burst damage due to some of its effects. However, due to the fact that it has both long range and short range, it is a really tough class to play, especially with its defensive capabilities. If you're not interested in a much, tougher class and min-maxing and, generally hardcore player, I might steer away from the Assassin, otherwise you might have some trouble. Let's talk about the pros and cons. So pros are very high damage, if you do it correctly, and does have some AoE, and it's very good at finishing people. For example, if somebody's at like 20% HP, it's extremely good at killing them, getting a cool back, and then jumping to the next person and completing the kill on people. Another pro would be high burst damage, as we we're just talking about, jumping from player to player. You can basically kill people immediately. Also, you have damage multipliers, which you can use in a combo along with your talents, and you can boost some of your abilities up to potentially like 200% damage plus 30% magic weakness plus magic defense down, and you can do a staggering amount of damage in one ability that doesn't even have to require them to have low HP. A pro would be switching between melee and range. So I know I mentioned that it is a very hard class to play because of it, but because it does have melee and range, it makes it honestly really strong in the PvP situation because you're able to kite and run away, and at the same time you're able to jump in and finish people when you really want to. It gives you more situational awareness is required, but it gives you more control over the situation because you're not just funneled into using a very straightforward attack style which people can counter relatively easy. You could also use this when it comes to PvE. For example, if you know a boss is going to do a lot of AoE soon, you can go into magic form, go back into range, do your damage, and then just completely avoid all the mechanics if you're not, super confident you can use your abilities to get around them. So some of the cons would be low HP, low defense, and melee is super squishy. So melee generally requires you to be extremely close to them. And while you don't have a lot of, abilities that prevent you from moving, you do have one dodge like this. But some abilities are longer range than that. So you might have to use your abilities or might have to go into magic form. Magic form was definitely going to do less damage than your melee form. So the longer you are in that form, the less damage you're going to do overall. So if you're not confident in your melee form, perhaps put a bit more defenses on, like a bit more HP stats and defense, etc. to make you a little bit more tanky, so if you're hit by a single AoE, you won't get crushed. Personally, playing on the other version, when I went into boss fights, we were about level 75 roughly, and I took this, general basic gear in, just a single AoE from the boss that I would barely see would one-shot me. So, and this was on a gunner class, so playing a melee class, being up front and having low defense and getting hit is definitely going to KO you if you don't raise your defenses. Lack of control skills, very vulnerable if caught out. So you do have abilities that can make you invulnerable and not take any damage and escape, but if you have used those and you get stunned or something like that afterwards, you're kind of in trouble because you don't really have other abilities that stun other people. You can pull them in and kind of keep them there, but in PvP, I don't think this is going to work as well. So if somebody gets on top of you and stuns you and you've already used your escapes or you're 2 vs 1, you're probably in a lot of trouble. Okay, so it requires a high level skill to manage melee and range with limited survival. So as with the gunner, positioning is key, but is much more difficult due to the fact that you have two different styles. It is a pro that you do have them, but the downside is that a lot of people are going to try it and not be able to do it efficiently. I've seen a lot of games where people have to play melee and long range at the same time, and they just can't fully grasp it. So again, unless you're really into min-maxing and really want to try hard, probably avoid this class unless you are happy with being, you know, a casual and mediocre damage the entire time, because it is going to require a fair bit of time and effort to, you know, learn the boss patterns and preemptively guess or know when bosses are going to do certain abilities, so you know where to go. Okay, so now that we've talked about the pros and cons, let's have a look at the abilities. Okay, so first let's have a look at the abilities and then we'll use the abilities. So first up is Prelude Dawn. Pulsating energy from the earth deals magic damage to the target and up to 5 nearby enemies. This is basically kind of like your bread and butter ability for your long range, and basically throw it out whenever you got it and your enemies are nearby, because it has a 6-second cooldown. It doesn't cost you anything to use it. Next up is Dark Rhapsody. So Dark Rhapsody, what it basically does is inflicts slow and drags everybody into the center. Keep in mind this does say non-player, so it can't be done in PvP. However, what this will be used for is, along with your other ability, you're basically going to pull all the mobs in to help you do more multi-strike damage and more AoE damage, and it would be extremely helpful for other classes as well as a utility ability, because a lot of other classes do want the mobs close together as well to do massive AoE damage. Okay, so next up we have Nocturnal Luna. So throw a spinning blade that stays at the target location for 4 seconds, dealing continuous magic damage up to 5 enemies in its path. Explodes when time expires, dealing heavy magic damage. So how this is going to work is you're going to throw out Dark Rhapsody, and then you're going to throw out Prelude Dawn or Nocturnal Luna, as long as you use both. And when you use Nocturnal Luna, you're going to get Moon Shadow. It causes Moonblade to explode immediately, causing damage. So you're able to throw this out and it'll do AoE damage on the circle, inside the circle, and along with this ability here. And you're able to click it again to instantly teleport to them if you want to change to melee form and start using multi-strike on your melee form. This ability here is Crystal Coffin. Unfortunately, I can't show it because I don't have the ability level required in this version. It's basically just your everyday ice coffin that every mage in every game ever has. It basically prevents you from taking any damage. So in here, this ability here, what this ability will do is it'll switch you into melee form. So while I'm talking about it in the mage aspect of the game, it does actually refer to your melee section. So it switches to Dark Shadow form, changing normal attacks to melee attacks while becoming invisible, becoming immune to control, and increase movement speed by 30%. So you can use this to get away from boss abilities if you really want to. If proactively decloaked, also grant a bonus of 3 seconds of control immunity, stacks with control immunity from Dark Hunt. If there is an enemy target, uses a Hunt mark to tag the target, reducing their magic defense and ignoring target invisibility for 10 seconds. Targets killed while tagged by Mark Hunt reset all Dark Shadow cooldowns for 20 seconds. So basically how this works is you're going to use this and you're going to mark somebody, and it's going to reduce their magic defense. And you've got to switch into melee form. When you switch into melee form, you're going to get access to these abilities, which we'll talk about in a moment. And use these abilities while their magic defense is lowered to KO them. And if you KO them, all the abilities are reset immediately, so you can immediately jump on somebody else. I guess it could be used in PvE, but I think the main use of this will probably be for PvP. Okay, let's go on and have a talk about the melee section. Okay, next up, let's talk about the melee abilities. Let's bring up the skill section. So over here is Void Storm. This will swap you from melee to long range. So here we have Obsidian Edge. Creates a massive obsidian shard that tracks the target, dealing AoE damage. If target has Nether Mark, remove Nether Mark and deal an additional 50% damage, causing 2-second delay. So keep in mind that this ability here, when you swap to melee form, reduces their magic defense. So if you're able to use this and still have the mark on them, which is Hunt Mark, and then use this, you're going to do a lot of damage. But keep in mind that the Hunt Mark that you receive from this, which lowers their defense, and the Nether Mark are 2 different marks, which we'll talk about in a moment. So here we have Shadow Strike. Charges at the target, dealing damage up to 5 enemies at the target location. If enemy targets have Nether Mark, remove Nether Mark and reset Shadow Strike cooldown. So Shadow Strike cooldown is basically a jump at them ability and do a bunch of damage. And it has a 12-second cooldown. Like the other ability here, it has an extra effect if you are removing Nether Mark. So this gives it 50% more damage, and this will reset your cooldown. Here is Shadow Dark. Throw 3 Nether Darks, dealing damage to enemies in the path, inflicting Nether Mark for 10 seconds, 15-second cooldown. Each normal attack hit in Shadow form reduces cooldown by 0.3 seconds. So basically, what you're going to want to be doing is if you use Shadow Mark, it'll give you Nether, and then you use the Nether, for example, on Shadow Strike, and Shadow Strike will allow you to use it again immediately, and because you hit twice, it starts reducing the cooldown on Shadow Dark quickly because you're reducing cooldown for every time that you hit them in melee form. So your two options are hitting them twice with the Shadow Strike ability, or you can use your Obsidian Edge to do 50% more damage. So a possible combination would be changing into the form, they get marked, then you would use your Shadow Strike to make them get your Nether Mark, then you would use Obsidian Edge to do a massive amount of damage to finish them off. So your other ability is Soul Fisher. 2 swift strikes deal damage up to 5 enemies within 3 meters in front, inflicting 30% slow for 3 seconds. So this is just basically your bread and butter ability. This is probably your ability that you're going to be using a majority of the time when you're not comboing, because it does hit 5 enemies. So basically use this to hit 5 enemies all the times and with your auto attacks, and then use these abilities here when you have Nether Mark up, and that'll basically make your melee rotation. You're generally just going to be using this and auto attacks though, because these cooldowns can be a little bit longer if you don't do them right, or if you mess up the mark, or if you use an ability and just simply miss. Okay, so as we spoke about, that covers the melee and the magical forms of the assassin class. Let's have a look at the talents. So in here, we'll have a look at them quickly. When multi-strike, Earthquake is triggered, get an additional various effect, increasing Earthquake damage by 4%. Basically, this is an Earthquake, and it can do damage based on multi-strike. Multi-strike will make it so you strike multiple enemies with your single target abilities. Not something that I would usually use personally, because I don't fully understand it. Adjust stance based on remaining HP. Basically, what this does is it makes you, the less HP you have, the more damage you do, and the less damage you take. Kind of a double-edged sword in a way that it's really good when you're lower HP, but you have to go lower HP, so if you get hit, you're kind of going to get wiped out. Magic Melody, when dealing damage to targets with Hunt Mark, so the Hunt Mark would be the one when you change form. All skill cooldowns during Dark Shadow are reduced by 1 second. So basically you swap form, and then when they've got the Hunt Mark on them and you're using all your abilities really quickly, they're all going to be reduced by 1 second. Okay, so next up, we have Dissonance. Each time Multi-Strike Earthquake is triggered, there's a 20% chance to inflict another mark on the target. This is cool. This can put Nether Mark on, which you can do much more damage if you have multiple Nether Marks on. I don't fully understand the Multi-Strike aspect of the game yet, and we'll be going more over this in the doc when we get more information on the official game and how the stat works exactly. Overall, it does seem that Multi-Strike would be effective for an assassin, but I don't fully understand how it would translate into your maximum damage. So Moon Serenade. If Moon Shadow hits the target, reduce Moonlight cooldown by 5 seconds, and increases damage dealt by the next Moonlight by 40% for 20 seconds. That's pretty cool. Crystal Center. Dark Rapacity summons a crystal that explodes after some time, dealing 10,000 damage. That's okay. Okay, so next up we have Funeral Bells. Dark Hunt and Mark Hunt's invisibility time are increased by 3 seconds. After invisibility is broken, the next Soul Fisher will reduce target's magic defense by 30% for 5 seconds. That could do a lot of damage if you stacked it up. I'm not quite sure how it would work though, because it kind of needs the ultimate ability to be that effective. Crystal Coffin resets Moonlight cooldown. Pretty cool, but honestly, you wouldn't want to be using Crystal Coffin that often anyway. It has a 40-second cooldown, so reducing the cooldown on another ability, the only way you could possibly do it is to use Moonlight into Crystal, back in the Moonlight, and then you don't have Crystal for a defensive ability, so I generally wouldn't recommend it. Dawn and Soul Fisher trigger multi-strike. Earthquake rate is 2 times of its base rate. This could be cool if you're stacking this up with your other abilities here, which mention multi-strike and Earthquake. And here, when in Dark Shadow form, targets that have 20% or lower HP are dealt an additional 25% HP. So basically, when I was speaking earlier, how you would be able to jump on people when they were lower HP in Shadow form, you would use this to KO them and then get all your cooldowns back because you KO'd them really quickly. Obsidian Edge increases magic damage taken by 25% from the target for 5 seconds. If the target has Nether Mark, Obsidian Edge will not remove the mark and resets Nether Mark remaining time to 10 seconds. So if you have this, you could swap form, use Obsidian Nether Mark, then use your big explosion ability, which has 150% damage because it has a Nether Mark. Then you would be able to use this ability and not remove it, and then you could use your other reset ability to do a tremendous amount of damage immediately. So, when in Dark Shadow form, Multi-Strike Earthquake will grant you a shield that absorbs 9,000 damage. When in Hunter form, Multi-Strike Earthquake has a 20% chance of recasting a domain underneath the target for 16,000 damage. So I think that for this class overall, you're probably going to want to go for Multi-Strike, and we will soon gather more information about this so we can put it in the doc and explain properly how it works. So let's have you look at your two basic abilities in here. We have Void. So incorporate yourself into the Void, being immune to all damage and control effects. Last 5 seconds. Within the duration, your move speed is increased by 20% and enemies approaching the Void are dealt a total of 17,000 damage. Basically, this makes it so you can run away. And it has other effects here, depending on the level, because you are able to upgrade the level, and as you can see here, it changes what it does and increases the damage, so make sure that you have a good look through it before you decide on when to use it. Black Hole. So, use the power of Void to create a black hole, sucking nearby enemies to the center. Affected enemies suffer magic damage. Black Hole collapses and implodes after 3.5 seconds, dealing 20,000 magic damage. Next here, reduces to 90 seconds, so you can use it much more often. So you could use this in combination with your other sucking ability in PvE situations, and you could pull the mobs in much closer, and this would really help you with your multi-strike and really help a gunner too, because they do want to hit 5 targets at all times. Not really useful in PvP, but extremely useful in PvE, and makes you a much more utility-based high damage dealer rather than just a high damage dealer and ignoring your needs of your other teammates. Okay, that covers the basics of the Assassin Guide for Dragon Raja. Again, there will be a form underneath the video which will consistently be updated, so I suggest you saving it to your browser. When the community gets more information, we'll add in more builds, we'll add in more, basically everything from the beta as we get in, to help people get a sustained idea and a better idea of min-maxing your character, and at the same time helping casuals get a basic idea of the class. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.